Chapter 11. By bedtime, Rosie had a basic model of the Paint-A-Palooza tube, but she had so much more to do. She needed big painting gloves and a bigger pump June could use without electricity. But Rosie was too tired to keep working. She went to bed but could not sleep. She was worried. What if she didn't finish in time? What if the contraption squirted the crowd with paint? What if somebody knocked it over? What if... Stop and think, Rosie said out loud. Rosie had a great imagination. It made her a great engineer, but sometimes her what-ifs got carried away. When that happened, Rosie had to remind herself to stop and think differently. It was a trick that Aunt Rose taught her. It helped her stay on track, and it helped her feel better. Rosie relaxed and breathed deeply. That was another trick to get calm that she knew. Moonlight spilled into her room and lit her bed with a grayish glow. At last her eyes grew heavy, and Rosie drifted to clip, snip, scrape. Rosie jumped out of bed and looked out the window. The noises stopped. She strained to see into the dark. Was the figure in the shadows of Mrs. Lou's garden? Rosie rubbed her eyes and looked again. She only saw shadows. The pampas grass glowed dimly in the moonlight and swayed in the cool night breeze. Suddenly, a chill passed over Rosie. She climbed back into bed and pulled up the covers up to her chin. Rosie shook away the image of the shadowy figure and thought about buckets and pumps and painting. Slowly, her eyelids grew heavier and heavier. Then, at last, Rosie Revere slept. Chapter 12. Rosie woke early and hopped out of bed. The Blue River Creek Festival was one day away, and she still needed a working pump. Rosie went outside. Iggy and Ada were already in the yard, filling small jars with paint and water. They were doing an experiment to find the perfect mixture. If it's too thick, it won't flow through the tubes, said Ada. If it's too thin, it will drip off the canvas. Rosie went to the patio to get a small table for the Paint-A-Palooza. A big blue bucket sat on the table. It was filled with plastic tubing and waterproof tape. Thanks for getting all this stuff, Rosie yelled to her friends. They were too busy to notice. As Rosie worked on the pump, Ada and Iggy experimented, and Gizmo chirped from the trees. Rosie attached thin metal curtain rods from the thrift shop to a giant pair of garden gloves. Then she added the brushes. They were long enough to reach the edges of the canvas. Next, she used strings and springs and other things to make this paint switcher, so June could change the colors while she worked. Ada and Iggy made progress. After 2 hours, the team had a perfect paint formula and a working set of brush gloves. They had everything except a pump. Rosie still worked, but if she did not come up with a pump, the Paint-A-Palooza would flop. But much worse, June's surprise would be ruined. The Art-A-Go-Go would be a no-go. Rosie and her friends could not let that happen. They worked and worked. They tried this, that, and the other thing. As the hours ticked away, so did Rosie's patience. Why don't we take a break? Asked Ada. A timeout helps me think better. We need more paint, said Iggy. Let's go get some. You and Ada go, said Rosie. I'll keep working. Ada and Iggy grabbed Rosie's wagon and headed to the Happy Sappy art store. Rosie looked around the yard. It was a mess. The grass was filled with puddles of paint. She turned around and stepped right into the big bucket of blue paint. Slop! Blue paint glopped all over her red shoe. Frustration boiled up inside Rosie. She wanted to throw the bucket and the Paint-A-Palooza into the trash can. Ugh! Shouted Rosie. She kicked her foot and shook off the paint. Zop! Rosie's shoe flew off. It soared through the air and smacked into the tree right next to Gizmo. Gizmo chirped angrily and flew off. I'm sorry, Gizmo, yelled Rosie. Rosie chased the bird, leaving a trail of blue footprints as she went, but Gizmo was too fast. Halfway around the block, Rosie gave up. She was frustrated and frazzled. She couldn't think straight, but that was exactly what she needed to do. Stop and think. Rosie said. Rosie plopped down beneath the tree. She took a deep breath and tried to calm down. It helped a little. Ada was right, thought Rosie. I need a break. Rosie got up and walked down the sidewalk. As she walked, her anger faded, like her blue footprints on the concrete. With each step, the prints were lighter, and so was her mood. She hoped Gizmo would be waiting for her at home, and that's right where Rosie found her, but she was not alone. Chapter 13. As Rosie turned the corner, a strange droning sound filled the air. Then someone yelled, 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there was music. It was the McAllisters on the bed of a big old army truck right in front of Rosie's house. The droning sound was Hetty on the bagpipes. Betty played the pump organ and Letty played the accordion. The Raucous Riveters danced in the street in front of the truck. They twirled and swirled and jumped to the jive. Rosie's family and neighbors poured out of their houses and joined the fun. The Riveters all sang, "We can rivet, weld, and hammer, and we do it just fine, building ships and planes and trucks on the assembly line. We can do it, each and every one, and we'll do our part right from the start until the job is done." Gizmo flew to Rosie, looped the loop, and zoomed back to the organ where Aunt Rose's bird, Gadget, tweeted along with the music. "Hey, hey," said Aunt Rose when Rosie reached the crowd. "We thought you could use a dance party." She tapped her cane along with the music. "How is it going?" she asked. "I'm stuck," said Rosie. "Dance it off," said Aunt Rose. "Show us some moves." The music was catchy, and before she knew it, Rosie was tapping her foot. Then she was dancing. It was a right raucous time for a few minutes. Rosie forgot all about the pump. Ada and Iggy came back with a wagon full of paint cans. They parked the wagon and jumped into the dance. Each of the kids had their own dance moves. Before long, the Riveters were doing a skyscraper with Iggy. Ada taught them the molecule. Rosie had everyone spinning around doing the gyroscope. Rosie had never heard of a trio like the McAllister sisters. She especially loved the bagpipes. Hetty blew into the mouthpiece to fill the leather bag. Then she squeezed the bag with her arms. Each squeeze pushed air through the musical pipe. Her fingers danced over the holes and played a jumping, jazzy tune. Letty stretched the accordion to suck in air. Then she squeezed it and pressed keys to play notes. Betty stepped on the foot pedal of the organ while her hands flew up and down at the keyboard. Each instrument pumped in air and held it until the note was played. How did that work? Why did the air whoosh out of the instruments as soon as the pumping stopped? Something blocked the air from flowing backward. These questions swirled like music in Rosie's mind. She didn't notice that she had stopped dancing. She was thinking, and she was on to an answer. Then, suddenly, Rosie Revere knew exactly what she needed. A valve. For the next hour, the McAllisters played and sang, and Ada and Iggy in the crowd danced to the swinging music. No one even noticed that Rosie was gone. The music drifted towards Rosie's backyard, where she worked furiously. She did not notice the faint snipping and clipping noises beyond the hedge, keeping time with the music. Rosie was too busy smiling at the finished Paint-A-Palooza 3 to notice anything at all.